Minnie and I are a year apart in age. She is 31F, and I am 30F. Growing up, my sister would tell me many times that she was jealous of me and that she disliked me. It would make me really sad because she was my only sibling, and I loved and admired her a lot. I had always looked up to her and tried to be close to her, but she pushed me away. When she was happy, she was a great sister, a really fun and creative person. However, whenever we got into arguments, she would say really mean things to me and try to physically harm me by either punching me, pushing me, or pulling my hair. My parents would scold her for doing this since she was older than me. I would try to tell her how much I looked up to her and wanted to be close with her, but she always resented me. Minnie always had a more outgoing personality. She had a strong passion for the arts, excelling in makeup and fashion. She loved experimenting with her hair and getting tattoos. My mom had started me early in school, and eventually, Minnie and I ended up in the same grade because I demonstrated advanced academic abilities according to my teachers. Fortunately, we weren't placed in the same class. Minnie did not like this and often saw me as her competition because I was more academically inclined. It wasn't a high bar, though, as Minnie simply disliked doing homework, making my pretty average grades appear stellar. I consistently earned a mix of B's and A's, while Minnie typically got C's and B's. Her strengths lay in art, drama, cooking, sewing, and dance. As I grew up, I ended up falling in love with the violin since my mother pushed me to learn it and dab in learning French and Korean. Minnie was part of the drama department at school and spent most of her evenings practicing for plays. Things took a turn for her when she got kicked off the drama team due to a fight with fellow students. The drama unfolded because Minnie discovered her boyfriend cheating on her with another girl from their department. In response, Minnie decided to beat up the girl and set that girl's bag on fire. The incident led to Minnie being asked to leave the school, although nothing significant came out of it once my parents talked with the principal and compensated the girl. Also, to this day, I am not exactly sure about all the details, but I do remember that she had to repeat the 11th grade. Our parents lectured her a lot, and she was grounded until she turned 18. Because of this incident, her relationship with our parents suffered a lot, and they were disappointed with her for a very long time. The longest romantic relationship I have had lasted only 6 months, and you know why. It's all because of my sister. I was not exactly on a mission to find the one, but every time I had any decent relationship, she would try to jeopardize it. Once I really liked a guy called Derek. He and I had been together for 4 months, and things were getting pretty serious. We were on the verge of meeting each other's parents when, out of the blue, the night before, he blocked me from everywhere: phone number, a message, and Facebook. The only way we could communicate was face-to-face, so I ended up showing up uninvited at his house to talk. When I showed up at Derek's house uninvited, he seemed surprised to see me. I confronted him about being blocked on every platform and asked what had happened. Derek hesitated for a moment before admitting that my sister had reached out to him, expressing concerns and sharing stories about my alleged past that portrayed me in a negative light. Feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief, I pressed Derek to share the details of their conversation. He revealed that my sister had told him about how I had been talking to other guys throughout the time we had been dating and that she found me sending inappropriate pictures to one of my guy friends. I was mortified when I heard this. I tried to explain my side of the story, refuting the claims my sister had made, but Derek seemed uncertain and confused. He questioned me: why would my own sister lie about me and make up something so serious? I felt like crying as I explained to him how my sister had always been jealous of me and would try to mess up my relationships. I had no idea that she could go so far as to make up such lies about me. The damage was done, and despite my efforts to salvage the relationship, he expressed doubts about continuing since he didn't want to be involved with someone who had a troublesome sister like Minnie. I understood where he was coming from, since if I had a choice, I would not be related to her as well. Heartbroken and frustrated, I confronted my sister about her actions. After a lot of yelling, Minnie finally admitted to feeling insecure and jealous that I always dated good-looking guys. She told me that it was always easy for me to find guys, and she hated me. She asserted that she thought I was too good for Derek, so she made up all those lies to drive him away from me. I was so pissed at her, and it became very clear to me that her actions were driven by her own unresolved issues of jealousy. My parents reprimanded her and told her how wrong this was. Minnie didn't seem to care because, in the end, she got what she wanted. Derek and I were broken up. This incident served as a turning point in my life, prompting me to start thinking about moving away from her. It was a stark realization that if I ever wanted to have a healthy and lasting romantic connection, I could not have her near me. We both shared a dream of studying abroad. She did have immense potential, but it seemed like fear or a lack of personal research led her to pursue computer science in our home country, following our dad's advice. Witnessing that, I realized I didn't want my parents influencing my future choices. I worked tirelessly to secure a scholarship to study abroad. However, despite my efforts, financial constraints prevented me from going, so I compromised and started university in our country, majoring in what I wanted. However, after a year, my determination to go abroad persisted, and I kept searching for opportunities. Eventually, I secured a scholarship and could finally head overseas to restart my studies. My parents were really sad that I was moving away. On my last night at home, Minnie apologized to me for all the things she had done to me since our childhood. I don't know what prompted her to do so. Maybe it was the fact that I was moving so far away and she could have our parents to herself now. I didn't want to pursue any drama any longer, so I forgave her. During my solo adventure studying abroad, I underwent a significant transformation. I shed some weight, met new people, discovered my personal style, and gained newfound confidence. Graduating was a major milestone, but the year that followed was tough as I struggled to secure a job. Eventually, I found a good job and settled down. Meanwhile, Minnie finished her bachelor's in our home country. She told me how she wanted to come and study in the country I lived in for her master's, so I encouraged her. She started applying to different universities for scholarships, but her applications kept getting rejected. She started growing frustrated. Once she came to visit me, and she stayed with me for 10 days so I could show her around. She could see that I had changed, and whenever she made any sly remarks to me about my clothes or my hair, I did not listen anymore. I found it very weird how she would try to control what I was going to wear or how I needed to behave in public if she and I went out for lunch. If I had some friends over, she would tell me how she didn't like them and how I needed to find better people to hang out with. There have been instances when I would be enjoying myself with my friends, and suddenly she would get weird without any apparent reason. When I took her to work and showed her where I was working, she was surprised to see how huge my office was. I excitedly told her how I'd been presented with opportunities for new experiences in the field I was working in, but then she just went quiet and didn't even seem happy for me. Instead, she shifted the conversation to herself, expressing how she would love the same opportunities and regretting some of her past choices. Later, when we were having dinner, she told me how she wanted to extend her vacation and continue to live with me, but I knew that I could not live with her judgment. I politely told her that it was better for her to find new accommodations if she wanted to stay any longer because clearly, she had some issues with me and refused to talk to me about it. This is when Minnie loses her mind. She started yelling at me about how she was sick and tired of having me in her life when all everybody does is compare me to her and how her achievements in life are never enough. I pointed out to her that I never treated her this way, and it was she who always made me feel inferior. Minnie then told me how I was not anything special and that she could have done the same things as me if she had the same opportunities. I told her that we did have the same opportunities growing up, and that I decided to apply for universities here and worked my ass off to secure a scholarship while she was failing to secure one and was somehow blaming me for her choices. Comment. Unpopular opinion, your sister is textbook projection personified. She's literally mad that you worked hard and seized opportunities while she made consistently self-destructive choices. The way she frames everything as you being lucky instead of acknowledging your actual effort is textbook narcissist behavior. Her whole personality seems built around being perpetually jealous and bitter. Major props to you for staying composed and not letting her toxic energy drag you down. Back to the story. This pissed her off, and she told me that I was just a spoiled brat and that she wished I was never born. Those words hit me so much that I just got up from the table and locked myself in my room. 2 days later, when she flew back without ever apologizing to me, I could finally breathe in peace. I realized just how much she and I had changed over the years, and I had started to dislike her presence a little by now. Eventually, I met my boyfriend James, who worked in the same industry as me. Our paths crossed all the time, we had mutual friends, and during a gathering, we met and had a couple of drinks. It was super fun to talk to someone who understood my line of work, and I thought we would just be friends. Turns out he liked me and asked me out the next day. We started dating and were together for 2 years before he proposed to me. I am close to his family since they live in the same country, and he has met my parents through video calls. We had been planning for our wedding when I received a job offer that would pay me double what I was earning in my current company. The only catch was that the new company was based in my home country. I discussed this with my fiancé, and he and I both agreed that this was a life-changing opportunity, so I took the job. This is how I shifted back to my home country, and my family finally met my fiancé. My parents really adore James, and my dad spends his Sundays now golfing with him. My new job was going well, and James eventually found a new job also. During this time, Minnie avoided me like the plague. She refused to meet me or James, even though my parents would insist. She would make up random excuses to not meet us. She and I had not talked for a very long time, so I understood her hesitation, and honestly, I did not mind. I was afraid that she might try to jeopardize my relationship with James, just like she had done with all my previous relationships. James and I decided to get married after a few months of settling down in my home country. We booked plane tickets for his parents and grandparents so they could be there for us. We wanted to have a small and intimate wedding with only family and really close friends and a short honeymoon, as we both are really busy with work. During this time, we chose to have our wedding in the huge backyard of my parents' house, and they were extremely happy about this. Our grandparents, parents, siblings, and friends all made speeches, and we were showered with love and blessings. The only person who was missing was Minnie. She had apparently come down with a fever, or so she told us, which is why she could not attend. The food was awesome, and everybody danced till midnight. We all had a great time, and then James and I flew for our honeymoon. A week later, we returned from our honeymoon, and I was at my mother's place showing her some photos from my wedding when Minnie showed up. As I was talking to Mom about how happy our grandparents were during my wedding, Minnie interjected, asking if James and I were having any financial troubles. I laughed and told her how I had a much higher paying job now than before and how James was doing well also. She then mocked me by saying that maybe that was not the case since I had decided to get married in our parents' backyard. My mother came to my defense and told Minnie that there was nothing wrong with getting married in her backyard and that I wanted to have a smaller wedding, so it made sense for me. I agreed and told Minnie that I was thankful for her concern, but James and I did not like extravagant things despite our high income since we believed in using our money wisely. Minnie got really angry hearing this and told me that I was just trying to show off as usual and that I was probably lying about my salary. I shook my head and told her that I didn't need to show off in front of her and told her that we were not children anymore. She needed to grow up and not make up assumptions or lies about me. I reiterated that this is why I was glad that she did not come to my wedding. This pissed her off, and she walked out crying. My mother did try to de-escalate the situation, but Minnie didn't listen. Later, she told my grandparents and some of my cousins about how I was glad she did not come to my wedding and more things from our fight. I did send her a text to apologize, but she didn't bother replying. Over the years, I have tried to stay out of her way as much as I can, although we did have a few good moments. Also, James met her, and he immediately took a dislike to her. This was because Minnie would constantly make fun of him. For example, James and I both like watching Disney movies, which Minnie considers boring, and she says that James might not be manly enough. I took a lot of offense when she said this, and later she apologized to me and James. Minnie has also apparently expressed to my mother on several occasions that I recently found out that she thinks James is trying to control my life. When my mother confronted her about it, she told my mother how whenever she met James, she just had a bad feeling about him. One day, when my mother and Minnie had come over for lunch at my place, Minnie was telling us about how she was facing issues with her boyfriend, Larry. Apparently, Larry had moved in with Minnie but had lost his job after 2 months. Since then, he wasn't working, nor was he paying any bills around the house. I told Minnie firmly that she needed to kick Larry out of the house since he was clearly not contributing anything to their household. Then Minnie suddenly pointed out how I earn more than James, so does this mean I should kick him out also? I pointed out that, while it was true that I earned more than my husband earned quite well on his own, and we were both bringing in the cash flow to our household. He was not sitting around the house the whole day eating chips and playing games. My mother agreed and told Minnie how James had sacrificed his own career just so I could take up this high-paying job here. Minnie took offense to that and started saying how men should always be the ones earning more and how it was weird that James was okay with this arrangement. I told her that not every guy has a weak, fragile ego like all the men she has dated and that James loved me for who I am. Minnie, of course, never listened and later got married to Larry despite him being jobless. Larry also had a bit of a temper, which we all witnessed during their wedding when he got too drunk and started to pick a random fight with a waiter. Minnie and some of his brothers had to restrain him. It was very embarrassing, and I was a bit scared for Minnie, but I knew she would never listen to me, so I kept my mouth shut. Over time I have noticed Minnie and Larry's fights have only increased because every time they fight, Larry kicks her out of their home, so she has to come over and sleep at our parents' place. My parents are also concerned about her, but Minnie refuses to talk to them. One day, we heard from Larry's mother that Minnie had apparently cheated on Larry with one of her coworkers. They had a huge fight and, in the end, decided to work through their marriage. They had even started going for couple counseling. This year, I found out that I am pregnant. James and I are over the moon. My parents congratulated us and told me how proud they were to become grandparents soon. They assured me that they would be there for me every step of the way. Once Minnie learned I was pregnant, she asked my husband and me about names we liked and whether we wanted her help. James and I had discussed a few names, but I did not want to share it with her because I knew how judgmental she could be. I said a very firm no and told her no name would be shared until the baby was born and the name was official. Minnie suggested very strongly that this would be a terrible idea, saying that we should discuss the names with other family members so we could give the best name to our baby. I told her we did not want people interacting or interfering in the name choice since this was our baby and we were going to name it whatever we wanted. Comment. Excuse me? Who the heck thinks they get a vote in your baby's name? The entitlement is wild. The fact she's pushing so hard to be involved when she's been nothing but toxic is peak sister drama. Stand your ground. This is your child, and you get 100% naming rights. Her suggestion is just another attempt to insert herself where she doesn't belong. Boundaries, girl. Boundaries. Back to the story. Later, when it came to the baby shower, I asked my mother to arrange everything. I trusted my mother's judgment, and besides, I hated planning. I had also asked my mother to inform everyone not to give me any gifts since we still didn't know the gender of the baby. I just wanted to have a good time with my friends since it had been such a long time and learn tips about motherhood. On the day of the baby shower, I was pleasantly surprised to see that my mother had invited just my close friends, which is exactly what I wanted, and there were non-alcoholic drinks for everyone. I was having a great time catching up with my friends when Minnie showed up wearing a shirt that said godmother-to-be. My eyes widened in shock as there was no way in hell that I was ever going to make her my baby's godmother. It was a bit awkward as Minnie kept telling everyone how she had always wanted to be a godmother. What was frustrating was that she never even discussed this with me. As the day unfolded, my mother invited my husband, my father, and Larry to join us later in the afternoon since we were going to find out the gender of the baby. As James and I cut the cake together, we were shocked to find out that we were having a baby boy. Tears rolled down my eyes as my friends came and hugged me. However, Minnie suddenly got up to announce that she had something very important to say. Everyone stopped talking and looked at her curiously. She looked very solemn as she took out a document and held it up in front of everyone. She then announced that a few days ago, I had apparently gone for a paternity test and found out that James was not the father of my baby. She dramatically declared that the test results indicated a different father for the baby. The room fell silent, and my husband, James, was visibly disturbed. He turned to look at me as I stood there in shock. James asked me what was happening and if what Minnie was saying was true. I shook my head and looked at Minnie to explain herself. My mother, without a doubt in her mind, asked Minnie what the hell she was up to and why she was even making up such ridiculous things. She snatched the document from Minnie's hand and pointed out how the mother's name didn't even have my name on it. This is when Minnie started to laugh. My friends looked at me in bewilderment. With a smug expression, she revealed that she had downloaded a fake paternity test from the internet and came up with this plan to prove a point. She claimed that she wanted to expose James for who he was and how he was definitely abusive towards me. The entire room was in shock and disbelief. I asked Minnie if she was right in her head because my husband had never even raised his voice at me, let alone be abusive. She started to say how there was no way that a man could be happy letting his partner earn more than him and how she had suspected for a long time that he was extremely controlling. She went on to give random examples and then concluded, pointing out how James got angry when she first announced the paternity test. I yelled at her that the reason James got pissed was because she publicly humiliated me by announcing that my child didn't belong to him. I told her how my husband had never abused me or locked me out of our house, and she seemed to be projecting. I watched Minnie's face get red in embarrassment. I continued to tell her how I was so sick of her always being jealous of me all my life and how disgusting it was for her to turn my baby shower into such a fiasco. I announced to everyone that Minnie had always done this and recounted how she would lie about me to my ex-boyfriends. Minnie stood there looking humiliated. My mother told her how she had gone too far this time. Out of nowhere, her husband Larry, who had remained silent until then, stood up in the midst of the awkward silence and walked up to Minnie. To everyone's shock, he handed her some papers. The atmosphere shifted from discomfort to utter chaos as many started to question him about what this was. Larry told her how the marriage counseling was clearly not working for them and he had come to realize that they were toxic for each other. He told Minnie that he had been contemplating divorce and wanted to give her these documents tonight, but since she liked making a scene, he could not bear to go back home with her. He told her that he was done with her and her drama and walked out of the baby shower. The room fell into an uneasy silence as Larry's revelation hung in the air. Guests exchanged awkward glances, uncertain of how to respond to the unexpected turn of events. Minnie stood there stunned and speechless, holding the divorce papers in her hands. Minnie's attempt to overshadow the baby shower with her antics had backfired in the most unforeseen way. Instead of having the last laugh, she found herself facing the unraveling of her own marriage. The once celebratory atmosphere now carried a heavy tension, and the joyous occasion had turned into a somber affair as the reality of the situation sunk in. I decided that I was done with all this. I asked James to escort me out of the event, and he readily agreed. I hugged my mother goodbye, and she assured me that she would call me later to check up on me. Minnie tried to come up to me and apologize, but I didn't even bother glancing at her. Since then, my head has been reeling. As you can imagine, everyone is quite shocked about what has happened. I've been getting calls from people checking up on me. Some of them have informed me about how Minnie burst out crying once I left the venue and how my parents kicked her out without refusing to listen to her. I feel pity for her since she has now lost me, my parents, and also her husband. I feel a bit bad about how I shouted at her, even though at that moment I felt like it was justified. Was I an a-hole for exposing her jealousy in front of everyone after she tried to come up with a fake paternity test? Update 1. Firstly, I want to thank each and every one of you who took the time to read and respond to my story. The outpouring of empathy, advice, and shared experiences over the past week has been overwhelming. I am genuinely touched by the sense of community that Reddit has provided me during such a tough time. I have never posted on Reddit before, but because of what happened with my sister, I thought I needed some outside perspective. It's true what my sister did is extremely bizarre and vile, which is why I agree with some of your comments that she might require professional help. I also need to have a talk with my parents and cut her off permanently. I can't have her behaving this way around my baby. Update 2. Hi everyone, it's been a month since I last updated. I did talk to my parents about my sister, and they agree that it is the right decision for all of us to sever ties with her. Minnie shows no remorse and has now gone around telling people about how I made a huge deal out of her prank and brought up her past in front of her husband, which prompted him to divorce her. Larry has since talked with my parents and apologized to us for how he treated Minnie in the past. He has told us that the reason he would kick Minnie out of their place was not because he was abusing her, but because whenever they had fights, she would punch him and kick him in the face, which would make him feel unsafe around her. This was very shocking for us to hear because I always thought that Larry was the one at fault. But then he showed us pictures of his broken nose and black eye. It's lucky that Larry loved her enough to not go to the police, otherwise, Minnie would have ended up in jail by now. Clearly, he and Minnie had a toxic relationship, and I am kind of glad that they are getting a divorce. My parents have talked with Minnie and told her firmly that she was no longer welcome at their place or mine. Minnie started with her waterworks, but my mom was so pissed after what she had pulled at my baby shower that she just went off on her and told her that the next time she ever came near me or my baby, they would get a restraining order against her. They told her firmly that she needed to talk to a psychiatrist because something was clearly not right in her head. Minnie has refused to seek help and told my parents that they were being unfair by favoring me more than her. Anyway, I have blocked her from everywhere, and so has James. We have installed security cameras at our house, so if she ever comes to my place, I will involve the police. Update 3. It's been 8 months since my last update. I am happy to write that I gave birth to my baby boy recently. The pregnancy was tough, but I am so glad that our child is here. We have named him Alex. I can't believe that I am finally a mother. Our home is now adorned with the laughter and cries of our little one. James and I are adjusting to the new role of being parents, and despite the challenges, we are relishing every moment with our little one. My parents have been there for us every day as I get used to becoming a parent. James's parents are flying in to see us next month. Minnie has not disturbed us even once. The last I heard, she and Larry got a divorce, and she decided to pack up her things and move to a different city, perhaps to start afresh. I do feel sad that my sister cannot be a part of my celebration, but as a parent, I have to protect my little one.